You never know when you go to Egypt, right? You never know what's going to crack open. And this trip, which happened to be my second one, cracked me open in ways that I would have never imagined, nor was it something that I could have prepared for. It's that you can't have light without dark, and you can't have dark without light. There is no choice. But instead, it's about leading from your wholeness of your embodiment of both the light and the dark. All of this did not happen by launching or by forcing. It was actually by living in the frequency. You're not here to hustle. You're actually here to remember, to embody, to rise. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Power in the Pause podcast. How are you guys doing today? I am your host, Wendy Paige Sterling, and I am so incredibly excited to share today's episode with you all because this is going to be a sacred one. So I'm going to invite each and every one of you right here, right now, to please stop multitasking because this episode is a sacred one. Why? Well, it is because I am recording this episode after having just returned from an incredible 8-day trip to Egypt. So today's episode is really all about my Egypt initiation and the legacy that I was reminded of in my adventure. And here's the thing is that Egypt, you never know when you go to Egypt, right? You never know what's going to crack open. And this trip, which happened to be my second one, cracked me open in ways that I would have never imagined, nor was it something that I could have prepared for. And this was not a vacation, and it wasn't even just a spiritual trip. What Egypt was during this particular time period, which happened to be over the spring equinox, was it was a full body remembrance. What I experienced was a collapse of timelines, a reclamation of my power. And if I'm being really honest, it was the pause that created what I'm calling my next quantum leap. So today, I am sharing my truth with you, the truth behind what exactly happened, from the sobbing tears to the nausea to the divine messages that I was able to channel under the cosmic skies of Egypt. And if you are somebody who has been creating a deeper connection to your own truth, your own leadership, and your wealth, today's episode is going to be the start of that activation for you. So let's drop in and dive in today. So, you know how sometimes you think that you're doing the inner work, right? And we say that, we're embodied and we say that we want to lead from alignment. But here's what Egypt showed me, like a smack in the face. And it showed me where it was that I was still performing. And what ended up happening was it really showed me what true embodiment of my highest and best self actually feels like. And let me be the first to tell you that it is not a version of me that feels comfortable at any given time. We went to places like Saqqara, to the Great Pyramid, to the Temple of Isis, to Karnak, to Edfu, to Colombo. And at each place we went to, oh man, I was initiated over and over and over again. And I'm going to start with the sequential order of the places that we visited and what it was that I was hearing, what I was receiving, and what it was that I learned in each of these locations. So the first was Saqqara, and Saqqara reminded me what is actually already mine. You see, I wasn't there to learn. I was actually there to remember the queendom codes that already lived within my body. And it was an awakening that I wasn't necessarily expecting. It was this wave that came over and through me that reminded me of what was already within. And the next day, we then went to the Great Pyramid. And actually, we happened to be there on the eve of and over the threshold of the spring equinox. And if any of you have either heard or seen inside of the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, there is a sarcophagus. And I would dare to say that it's more of a portal. It's a time travel space where during our private tour, we were actually able to lay inside of the sarcophagus. And I can tell you that when I was in the Great Pyramid inside of the King's Chamber 2 years ago, I heard a message and it said, do not go in. So I didn't go in 2 years ago. But this time I got the strong message to get my butt inside of that sarcophagus. And I can tell you it was worth the wait. I laid down inside of there and I literally felt myself, my body, I left. It was, there I went. And I felt my soul just shoot up. And I also felt this grief that I didn't know that I was still carrying inside of me come pouring out. So when I came back into my body, which from what I'm told was about 5 minutes later, felt really fast. What ended up happening was when I came back into my body, I felt myself reborn and I felt my heart crack wide open. And I started sobbing tears of grief and relief that I came back a totally different person. And then the next day we went back to my lioness, the Sphinx, who every time I am in her presence, there's always something so powerful that gets downloaded inside of me. And the message that I received this time was that I was actually not there to find any key, that in fact, I am the key. And this is a message that I've delivered to my clients. It is actually an activation that I recorded while I was there, integrating my clients and those who have purchased those activations with a visualization to reconnect back in with that version of themselves and see that their key is already encoded in their DNA and how to access it really, really easily. So that cracked me open and made me further dig into what was already within. And so the next day when we went to the Temple of Isis, oh, you guys, it's so beautiful there. It is completely surrounded by water. And what was calling to me in that moment was the message of healing the matriarchal line and stepping into to create a brand spanking new wealth legacy, a new wealth legacy rooted in forgiveness, in softness, in divine remembrance. And that came through so powerfully. You see, when I was in Egypt 2.5 years ago, I actually saw a feather in front of a door to a temple that was representative of all the gods and goddesses. And the feather that I had found happened to be in front of the door for where Isis's chamber was. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I actually kept that feather in my wallet that I brought back to Egypt with me. And when I was there at the Temple of Isis, I actually released the feather back into the waters to not only just deepen my connection with her, but the message that I heard from her in that moment after releasing that feather into the waters, the sacred waters that surrounded her temple, was that she was always there. She was Mother Isis. Oh, just gives me chills. So anyways, we then boarded our amazing boat onto the Nile. And the next day we were taken to Komombo, which is a temple that is really all about the dance between light and dark. And it's where I really felt and saw how true sovereignty actually requires and holds both the light and the dark. That it's not that you have to choose, right? It's that you can't have light without dark and you can't have dark without light. There is no choice. But instead, it's about leading from your wholeness of your embodiment of both the light and the dark. It was so powerful. I felt called to go back to this one location, which was interesting because when I had gone back there, my mentor was already there and she was like, Wendy, I was like, I know I was being called and I could hear that I was supposed to come back here. And again, I recorded another really powerful activation for my clients and for those who have access to my Egypt activations is this remembrance, this embodiment of it's really a requirement of leaning into both your light and your dark so that you can lead from that place. That really is claim your own sovereignty in who it is that you be. Woo. And then I'll share one other highlight with you guys where we went to Karnak, and this is in Luxor. And Karnak was quite an experience. Every time I go to Karnak, I literally feel like I'm walking into a graveyard, a dark spiritual graveyard. And that also happens to be where the goddess Sekhmet is located. And she is all about the fire. And it was literal fire while I was there for me inside of my body. Because what ended up happening to me there was I actually felt energetically invaded. I was managing and trying to manage, I should say, a really bad migraine. No amount of medicine or drinking water was curing. And it was intensifying when we were at Karnak, and especially when we went in to see Sekhmet. And what ended up happening was that slowly started turning into a sickness, into nausea. And I felt like an energy, a spirit had literally latched onto me. And it was so powerful that I had to go back onto the bus. I had to go back to the hotel. I had to go get myself near water. I literally felt like I was hallucinating, laying out by the pool, just trying to move through what was happening inside of my body. I was doing my own energy healing. I was calling in all of the healer friends that were on this trip with me, and nothing was working. No amount of medicine, no amount of healing was actually happening. And I finally made the decision to just surrender into what was happening. And it brought on so many tears and another crack that ended up happening inside of me. And I also I had to reach out to a dear friend here back in the States. And she is someone, and actually Carol Walkner, who you guys, there's another episode that I've interviewed her on my podcast, which you should go check out. But I reached out to her, and she started doing work on me and started sharing with me this really deep rooted past life of mine that was not only something that was coming back into my memory, but it was something that she was working on erasing from my memory because it was what was making me so sick. And the nausea that I was feeling was very similar to how sick I felt when I was in childbirth. And I literally felt like someone was gutting me to get a baby out of me. I've never had a C-section. I've had both my boys, vaginally. And so I don't know that that's what it felt like, but that's the best way that I could describe it. And what I was actually told by Carol in that moment was how I was actually in a past life, how when I was 8 months pregnant, that I had a baby physically removed from me and I was left to die there on the table, and they took my baby. And it was quite powerful. And as she was doing work on me, I started feeling myself, the nausea was lessening. And I got myself on the plane in Luxor because we had to fly back to Cairo that night. And to make matters even more sketchy for me, I was also scheduled to fly home a couple hours after we landed in Cairo to come back to the States. And so I just surrendered once again when we got on that plane. And I was still very sick. I managed to get myself to sleep. And the second we landed back, touchdown in Cairo, I was fine. Nausea was gone, headache was gone. And all of a sudden, I looked at my friend who was sitting in the seat next to me, and she's like, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm fine. This is so weird, but I feel totally fine." And here's what I can tell each of you. And here's sort of, as I've been back and I've been sorting through a lot of my experiences there, here's what I now know is that what I was experiencing in Egypt was a clearing. It was a purification. It was a reminder that power without protection can actually be really dangerous. And the strategy that we all seek, right, has to do with embodiment. That, my friend, is what is crucial. And I can tell you that when I was going through these experiences when I was in Egypt, not only did I create over $15,000 in revenue, okay, my clients back home were experiencing their first ever 5-figure months. an abundance of clients flooding their space, offers that were coming in, collaborations that they had created during that time. And all of this did not happen by launching or by forcing. It was actually by living in the frequency of what it was that I received that they're a part of because they're in my container. So based on what I've shared today, I want to just ask you guys a couple of questions, like some really important questions. You can come back to this episode and answer them, but ask yourself, like, where are you still performing your power, right? Not embodying, but performing. Another question, where are you leaking energy to try to prove instead of trusting what is already within? And the last thing is, what's asking is begging you to clear so that you can start leading from your truth instead of being in survival mode. And so what I'm inviting you is to really get honest with yourself. And I would love to hear the answers to these questions. You can DM me on Instagram, or you can send me an email, wendy@wendypagesterling.com, and share with me your answers to these questions. Because this is your opportunity to find your own power in a pause moment right here, right now. And if this episode actually stirred something in you, good, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to stir a pot within, because I didn't just receive these activations for me. I actually recorded them for you, for the women in my own space that are seeking the same evolution of themselves, the same journey that I'm here for. And right here in real time, I recorded these visualizations, these activations with the exact frequencies that have changed everything for me and for my clients. And I've actually bundled them into what I'm calling the Egypt Wealth Code activations. And it is a powerful 7 audio portal that will help you to release any old coding that is no longer serving you and help you to rewire your field for wealth, for legacy, for embodiment, for embracing the softness within you. And when you grab them for as long as they're available, the offer is going to go away by the end of this month, which is April. You're also going to receive a private one-on-one bonus coaching call with me so that we can drop in, integrate, and let this energy meet you exactly where it is that you are. So if you want access to that link, go into the show notes and get yourself signed up for this powerful activation, because what it will do is it will accelerate your ability to step into your next evolution. You're not here to hustle. You're actually here to remember, to embody, to rise. And so I want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to some of my adventures in Egypt. There are a lot more to come. And as I sort through them, I will happily share them with you guys. So as you know, with every single episode, what my goal is to empower each and every one of you to not only find your own power in the pause, but to learn to start trusting it as well. So thank you guys again for tuning into today's episode. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Wendy Paige Sterling and grab those Egypt activations while they are still available to you right here, right now. Can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. Sending you so much love and light always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.